Hi guys, so I am here to teach you math, or really I'm just going to be reviewing chapters 23 and 24. I highly recommend that while I'm doing it on the board, you are writing down some notes because I'm going to go through and just remind you some key points for each lesson or for each topic that I feel like maybe we need some reminders for. So that being said, please take out your math book and your math notes and a pencil. And I just wanted to remind you that your unit test is tomorrow, so you want to be watching this video fully and paying attention and taking some notes just like you would do if you were in class. So just go ahead and open to chapter 23 and have it open so that you can pay attention and go along with me, and let's get started. So I'm going to title this unit review. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to review is percent from a fraction. How do I get a percent if I have a fraction? So just a couple notes. So percent from a fraction. How do I do that? Okay, you have two scenarios. So first scenario is that you turn the denominator, the bottom fraction, into a 100. And then whatever number is on top is your percent, or if you can't, turn it into 100, then divide. So for instance, if I have an 8 on the bottom, that's probably the most common one. 3/8, 5/8, 6/8 is where you can't change it into 100. But I'm going to give you one more tip. Sometimes if you reduce, simplify. Reduce and simplify are the same thing. You're making it smaller. So sometimes if you reduce, simplify, you can turn it into 100. For instance, I said 6/8, right? So if I have 6/8, can't I reduce 6/8 to make it smaller? So what does 6 and 8 have in common? 2. Okay, so I have 3/4, and now I have a 4. Can I turn a 4 into a 100? Yes, by multiplying by 25. So 3 times 25 is 75 over 100, and then this would be 75%. So sometimes it's all about thinking, what if I simplify this fraction? Then can I turn it into a 100? And in this case, yes. I would say 3/8 you can't do that. 2/8 you could. 2/8 is 1/4, which is 25%. So you just have to think about that. So that's a tip. I'm going to give you an example of each of these. So if I have 4/20, I am then going to multiply by 5 to turn 20 into 100. So now I have 20 over 100, which is 20%. Okay, but then what do I do if I can't turn it into 100? I need to divide, so I have 5/8. Okay, I know that 8 can't go into 5, so I'm going to put a decimal point and put a 0. And how many times does 8 go into 50? 6 times, which is 48. I'm going to add another 0. Okay, so then I said 8 times 2 is 16 and got 4. Okay, so now I have this. How do I then turn this decimal into a percent? I have to move the decimal 2 times. How many times? 2. So I'm going to go swoop, swoop. So now I have 62.5%. Okay? So that is what you do if you need to change a fraction into a percent, and you're going to see that on your review for today that you guys are going to do as your assignment. So, moving on, I'm going to go ahead and erase this. So now, the second thing you're going to see is comparing and ordering. Okay, so this is where you have 4/5, 0.2, and 60%. And it's saying, what is the least? In other words, what is the smallest number? So you have to change them into the same thing. So for me, I like percents. I think that percents is the easiest in this lesson. If you want to do fractions, you go for it. If you want to do decimals, go for it. I'm going to show you the percent way because that's what I like, but remember that you can do it whatever works for you. Remember, some of us are fraction people, some of us are decimal people, some of us are percent people, and that's okay. I'm just going to show you one way, which is with percents. So, in order to do percent, I'm going to start with, and I'm going to actually write change into same form. And I'm going to say, whatever works for you. This is just going to come down and it's 60%. So now I have 0.2. And if I have 0.2, I can't just say that this is 2%. I have to take this decimal and move it twice. That is really important. So now I have 20.0 or 20%. Okay? That's it. It's not 2% though. It is 20%. And then I have 4/5, which I'm also going to change into a percent by turning this into 100. This is 80 over 100, which is 80. So this is the least. Okay, and remember when you put it in order, or if you circle which one is the least, it needs to be in the original form. Okay. Percent of a number on your page that you're going to do, your review page, it says evaluate by writing the percent as a fraction. That does not mean that your answer is going to be a fraction. That just means that you're going to use fractions to solve. If you want to use decimals, go for it, but I'm going to use fractions. So if I have a percent of a number, percent of 55. Okay, remember that the word of means to multiply. So 10%, 10 over 100 times 55 over 1. Okay, so I'm taking 10% and I'm turning it into a fraction. And it's just 10 over 100. and then I'm going to multiply it by 55, and I'm just going to put 55 over 1. Before I multiply, I want to make smaller numbers. So I'm going to divide this by 10, this by 10. So now I have 1/10 times 55 over 1, which is a lot easier to multiply. So 1 times 55 is 55, 10 times 1 is 10. I'm going to divide this, which equals 5.5. So 5.5 is 10% of 55. Okay, and that's all I'm going to do. Okay, next I'm going to look at comparing data sets. So really, this lesson was really just comparing fractions. So I know it sounds like very fancy, compare data sets, but it's really just fractions, or if you want, you can also use percents, and sometimes it might ask you to do that. So I'm going to show you 3 ways. Cross multiply, common denominator, and percents, because you may have a situation where you have to do any of these. It's really important that you learn all 3 of these. Common denominators is something that's going to come up a lot, so you want to make sure that you know common denominators. Okay, percents is really important because you're actually use that in your daily life, and then cross multiplying is just an easier way of doing it. So let's start with the hardest one, which I feel like the hardest one is common denominators. So I have 1 out of 5. Okay, and when I see 1 out of 5, that means I have 1 over 5 because I have 1 out of 5. Okay, I have 1 jelly bean out of 5 jelly beans that are, or I'm going to eat 1 jelly bean that is of the 5 that I'm eating in my hand. So I have 3 out of 30. So like I said, I'm going to do common denominators first. So again, 1 out of 5 is 1/5. 3 out of 30 is 3/30. Now, can I look at these two and find something that they have in common? Well, I'm thinking about my 5 times tables, my 5 multiplication facts. 5 times something equals 30. What is it? Okay, you should have said 6, so I'm going to multiply by 6, which is 6/30. Okay, so of course 6 is bigger than 3, so 1/5 is bigger than. Okay, that's one way. Okay, and I suggest common denominators are going to come up next year in 6th grade, so you may want to make sure that you understand how to do what I just did on the board. Now the other way is 1/5, 3/30, and I'm going to go and 30 times 1 is 30, 5 times 3 is 15, so again, 1/5 is bigger than 3/30. The last way is using percents. Now, you're going to look at 3/30 and you're going to say, I can't turn that into 100 on the bottom. Well, you can if you simplify. So I'm going to use this one right here. So 1/5 times 20 will give me 100. But I'm going to actually simplify this and divide by 3. Okay, so now I have 1/10. Can I turn 10 into 100? Yes, by multiplying by 10, which is 10 over 100. So now 20% and 10%, 20% is bigger. Okay, so you may have to do that. It may only give you that option that you have to do percents, and then we're going to expect that you use percents. So make sure that you understand what I just did. So for comparing data sets, there are 3 ways: common denominators, cross multiplying, and percents. And again, I highly recommend that you learn all 3. Okay. Mental math. You guys got to do some mental math. Okay. So, mental math. And this was for percent of a number. Okay, so remember to use a familiar fraction. Okay, and I'm going to give these to you again, just like I did in the lesson that I taught last week. So 50% is 1/2, 10%, 1/10, 25, 1/4, and 75, 3/4. Okay, so if I see any of those, I automatically know that I'm going to multiply one of those by one of those. So I have 25% of 32. So instead of saying 25 over 100 and simplifying that to 1/4, I'm just going to go straight to 1/4. Means to multiply. I'm going to cross cancel. So 25% of 32 is 8. Now, I cross canceled, and maybe you're still a little not sure about cross canceling. That's fine. Just make sure that when you multiply, you're careful and that you divide correctly if you need to. But just remember, I'm thinking about what these have in common. 4 and 32 have 4 in common. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 32 divided by 4 is 8, which is how I got that. Okay, so that was a lot of information thrown at you. Okay, so I just want you to remember that you've learned all of these lessons and this is just review. You've got this. Okay, now I'm going to talk about word problems for a second because I think word problems freak us out. Okay, honestly, I understand. But I just want to give you a couple of tips on these word problems in particular. You want to think about what you're looking for. So I maybe have a problem that's percent of a number. And if I have percent of a number, it's usually like something's on sale and I need to find the price. If that's true, then you're just doing a percent of a number like I just did. So it's usually when something is on sale. The other thing I'll see a lot of is using a fraction to find the percent. So maybe I have 12 out of every 25 and I need to know the percent. Well, that's just 12 over 25 and I just need to find the percent. Okay, so that would be 48%. Okay, don't let the word problems freak you out. You guys can do them. You just have to read them carefully. Circle the numbers, circle those keywords out of, or 30% off. That means it's a sale. Okay, you're getting a sale. Okay, what is being asked of you? Okay, now, if anything I did on the board, anything I talked about didn't make sense, please go in your chapters to find the information. So if you're stuck on modeling percents, which I didn't show one, but remember that's when you have the 100 grid and you fill it in, go to chapter 23, lesson 1. If you're stuck on how to change fraction to a percent or a fraction to a decimal, go see chapter 23, lesson 2. If you're confused about comparing, go see lesson 3 of 23. If you're stuck on percent of a number, go see lesson 4. I also didn't do an example of circle graphs. You do have one problem on your unit test that is a circle graph. So if you're stuck on circle graphs, go see chapter 24, lesson 1. If you're stuck on comparing data sets, go to chapter 24, lesson 2. If you are stuck on mental math, go to chapter 24, lesson 3. Also, see the videos that we've done, okay? Go rewatch them. If you're stuck on something, go see. And if you do all of that and you're still stuck, let us know before you take your unit test. We will be glad to help you. Okay, your job now is to do pages 534 to 535, numbers 1 through 25, to practice for your unit test that is tomorrow. And you can also get onto iExcel, and that is R1 through 5. Any of those will help with what I just went over. Okay, I know that was a long video, guys, but it was important, and I hope that it helps, and just let us know if you have any questions. But that's all I have for you today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.